the choke name versus its degree of constriction in thousandths of an inch. Now, obviously, if you change the diameter of a shotgun barrel smaller or larger, the degree of constriction, let's say at 1/100th of an inch for improved cylinder, wouldn't matter as much for a bigger diameter and would definitely matter maybe more than it should for something small like a 22 caliber shotgun. Yes, there is such a thing. Obviously, at 22 caliber, if you did a constriction of 1/100th of an inch, it would be a 21 caliber and probably a lot more than improved cylinder, because that would be the equivalent in a 12 gauge that's normally at like 63 caliber of being down by more than just one caliber mark. Okay? Okay. But generally between, as they say here, between gauge 10 through 20, they're used in this range. Now, what does this really mean? Okay, let's look at it as a percentage first. Cylinder bore, or declared bore for a shotgun barrel, is 73 caliber, approximately the same internal diameter as the Schedule 80 3/4 inch pipe if you drilled it out and put in a shotgun shell chamber at one end of your water pipe using a 13/16 drill bit. Or is it 15/16? I guess you'd have to look up the equivalent for 0.81 inch. Anyway, hint, hint. But anyway, if you change it from 73 caliber to 72 caliber, that's improved cylinder. And if you go down to 71 caliber, you notice it's single caliber numbers here. It's modified choke. And if you go down to 70 caliber, it's light full choke. And then if you take it down to 79.5, they don't do round numbers anymore. We're noticing constriction changes. This is percentage based. It really is. Super full choke, or what I like to call super chicken choke, is a reduction of 0.055 out of 0.72 or 0.73, right? Okay. What's going on here is it's actually a percentage change. They're just not saying so. There's more and more extreme changes because it's not linear. So that's the reason it's not being declared percentage. Now you could work up a percentage table. Since we have 1 versus 2 caliber between improved cylinder and improved, modified, you could say definitely out of 73 we have 72 and 71, and then finally 70 at light full. These designations indicate full caliber and half caliber diameter changes from what we could call 3/4 inch. No. So yeah, that's why this is not an exact science. And remember, shotgun barrels just have to be kind of, sorta. They're not firing a projectile, necessarily, that has to fit the bore perfectly. It's assuming that you're going to do things like use a shot cup or wads to create a proper seal, and you're not trying to push a single slug or the pellets by having them engage any kind of rifling or the smooth bore in any way. So they just work up tables for these things. Now this is 10 gauge all the way through 410. And in 410 they have full choke being, well, I'm just going to use calibers, using 40 caliber almost, and modified being a little over 40 caliber. It's a 0.2, either a 0.02 or 0.002, excuse me, 0.002, both directions. So very fine line here. Improved cylinder is a little over 40 caliber, almost 40.5 caliber, and it's also the same as skeet. And then instead of 410, it's 409 for cylinder. Yeah, very tiny changes there. Now we go to 10 gauge. It starts off at 77.5 caliber, and it goes down to 73 caliber for turkey choke. Turkey instead of chicken choke. Turkey choke is the most extreme that's considered a standard, and this is not even used in some of these chamberings or bores or gauges. You can almost remove that. For instance, your 68.5 caliber equivalent that shows up here for 12 gauge is for full choke only, and that's what we would normally call a paintball gun. Yeah, the full choke is, yeah. But you notice the same 12 gauges, depending on the brand name, are all over the place. It's 79 caliber. Or, well, how far can it go? 70 caliber for Invictor Plus is considered full choke. When you look up these numbers, look up any of this data, you find out that in the 12 gauge range, there's absolutely no consistency at all. Okay, well, what about the 20 gauge? Well, it's the last three lines there at the bottom, and extra full choke is almost 60 caliber, and it hovers around that. Okay. The cylinder bore, or starting point for all of this, has variations based on brand name. When it comes to the 12 gauge, they hover around 73 caliber to 72 caliber for the bore diameter of a 12 gauge all over the place. And 10 gauge has so few of anybody even making interpretations that you get a pretty consistent answer out of it. It's 77 down to 73 for turkey choke. They don't even do turkey choke for 410. And 16 gauge, 20, and 28 gauge only show fairly strictly done numbers. Now, this is the reason why it's not linear, because it can't be. You're trying to change the ending diameter of your pattern with a choke. So that's going to be non-linear. You're going to have to do a lot of math involving the volume of material, which usually it means that to change things by a diameter by cutting it in half or doubling it, you're using numbers that are on the point of being 1/8 or 8 times rather than doubling or quadrupling anything. It really is. You end up with math that doesn't work linearly. So it's no reason to believe that it would work linearly anywhere. It's not a percentage point or even a caliber or even a gauge change. Although gauge changes probably would work better, that's not used either. It's not a science, it is an art, because the science for it looks like voodoo. When science looks like voodoo, we call it art because we don't want to call it voodoo. Sorry, just had to say it. But anyway, this is the reason why if you're sweating whether or not your bore diameter of your shotgun or anything else that's doing something as imprecise is wrong or right, you're missing the point. There is no right or wrong way. Again, all of these standards started off with pipe diameters, yes, you can look them up, being reappropriated to make a weapon. I'm sorry, some of these numbers are literally dead on the mark for water pipe or gas pipe or electrical tubing or whatever. Usually it was gas tubing, which is weird to look up. Some of it was based on just a bolt or a metal bar diameter that was handy at the factory so they could use it for a standard. Now we're going to get to the sad world. The horrible, sad world of me looking this up. This is the quality control I see on websites when I try to look this crap up. So I'm going to include all of this information and tell you it's a guidebook. It's not a standard. Number one. Number two, don't sweat it. If what you own as a weapon or designing is within some of these ranges, nobody can say you're wrong because there's no right way to do it. And this is the reason why you have people being so fascinated with using 12-gauge shotguns as a basis for making all sorts of things like specialty rounds, or repurposing them for something else like launching flares, for instance, which is partially where I got my start in this, or doing really creative things to make it do really strange things through the air, like make a non-destructive device or a non-lethal round work. Just saying, there's a lot of slop factor here. Shotguns, again, are designed primarily to shoot multiple objects and not have any really precise or critical numbers to them. They're designed to do a whole hell of a lot of damage to a target if you're trying to do so, or none, depending on what load you pick. And they're the basis for a lot of hobby activity and reloading activity. And they're incredibly forgiving in their design. And this is something to be exploited and enjoyed. And no, there is no standard for these standards. The constriction, degree of constriction, again, looks like a nonlinear sequence because it's based on changing the diameter enough to make a difference. And sometimes a little change will do something, like in a really small bore thing like a 22, or sometimes it won't do anything. But eventually you have to make graphic, hardcore changes to have any effect at all, and it can't be linear, and it may not be even algorithmic or logarithmic. It may just be what works with your gun and your load at the time. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Bye.